What's up everybody, my name is Phosphoros and today I'm going to be teaching you to play Arcane in Dragonflight patch 10.2. I'll be telling you exactly what to press in what order for optimal damage, so let's get right into it. So first things first, let's take a look at our talents. On the general tree highlighted in green, you'll see the talents that I consider to be a requirement. These are talents that will give you a direct damage increase and should be included in every build. One thing to note here is that Temporal Warp allows you to have 2 Time Warp buffs active at the same time. So the play is to always try and double up on Temporal Warp whenever possible. As for the rest of the talents on the general tree, it's all up to you based on what you feel you need. I like going mostly defensive talents in Arcane Warding, Winter's Protection, Tempest Barrier, Cryo Freeze, Diverted Energy, and Accumulative Shielding. Mass Barrier and Ice Cold are also really good talents that I highly recommend in pretty much all content. The only exception is you may not want to take Ice Cold if there's a mechanic that you'd rather immune with Ice Block. Keep in mind also that Ice Cold interacts with both Cryo Freeze and Winter's Protection, so you can actually heal 80% of your health over the duration, in addition to a 70% damage reduction. Onto the Arcane tree, this is the pure single target build. The single target build revolves around abusing Nether Precision by weaving Arcane Missiles together with Arcane Blasts. Our goal is to get as many empowered Arcane Blasts out as we possibly can, and you'll notice this causes about half your damage to be attributed to Arcane Blast. Nether Tempest also has a pretty strong synergy with Arcane Echo in that each time Nether Tempest ticks, it also procs Arcane Echo. So not only is it good for damage during our Touch of the Magi windows, it's also a great tool for mana management, as you'll see later on. We also take Siphon Storm, Harmonic Echo, and Conjure Mana Gem as our capstones, and all of these serve to further empower us during our burst windows. Now whenever you have more than one target, you can use this build for Funnel Cleave. The difference between this build and the single target build is that we take Arcane Cleave, which allows Arcane Barrage to spread to nearby targets. This is where we get the cleave damage from. And it also interacts with Resonance, which gives Arcane Barrage 10% more damage per target it spreads to. And that's where we get the funnel damage from. In addition to this, we also take the Orb Barrage capstone, which gives Arcane Barrage a chance to shoot out a free Arcane Orb. As for Mythic Plus, this is the AoE build. This build is very similar to the Funnel Cleave build, you just remove 1 point in improved Arcane Missiles and put it into Reverberate instead. Now before we move into the single target rotation, I'd like to speak a bit about Arcane's damage pattern. Arcane has a very ebb and flow style to its damage pattern. About every 45 seconds you'll have a big burn with Arcane Surge, followed by a period of low filler damage, into a mini burn, followed by another period of low filler damage, and then the cycle repeats. Alright, let's head into the single target rotation. 15 seconds before the pull starts, you want to be spamming Arcane Explosion to fish for a clear casting proc. This part may vary based on your haste levels, but in general, 5 seconds before the pull starts, you want to cast Evocation so we can start stacking Siphon Storm. Once you hit 7 stacks, you want to cast Arcane Blast into an Arcane Orb precast. The pull has now begun and we already have 4 Arcane charges, so we're ready to start the Arcane Surge burn. However, this opener will change based on if you have double Time Warp activated or not. So if you plan on popping double Time Warp, you want to cast Nether Tempest and follow a priority list of Nether Precision buffed Arcane Blasts, clear-casted Arcane Missiles, and regular Arcane Blasts. One thing to note here is that when you're casting clear-casted Arcane Missiles, it's actually a DPS gain to cut the channel short and cast more Arcane Blasts instead. Clear-casted Arcane Missiles are really only good for giving us Nether Precision stacks to buff Arcane Blast, so once you channel Arcane Missiles, just start spamming Arcane Blast to end the channel as soon as possible. There are some cases where you don't want to clip Arcane Missiles, but more on that later. For now, follow this priority list until you either run out of mana or your Siphon Storm buff gets to 17 seconds left. Then cast Radiant Spark. If you don't plan on popping double Time Warp, then when the pull starts, just head straight into your Radiant Spark ramp. So pop Radiant Spark, Nether Tempest into Arcane Surge, Mana Gem, and then Arcane Barrage. While Arcane Barrage is traveling, you want to cast Touch of the Magi and make sure Touch of the Magi is applied before your Arcane Barrage lands. The reason we pop Touch of the Magi while Barrage is traveling is that we gain about an extra second of Touch of the Magi uptime, while still benefiting from Barrage inside it. Also, Touch of the Magi itself gives us 4 Arcane charges, so right after Touch of the Magi we want to cast 3 Arcane Blasts to finish up our Radiant Spark ramp. After this we follow a simple priority list of Nether Precision buffed Arcane Blasts, clear-casted Arcane Missiles, and regular Arcane Blasts. Once again, make sure to clip your Arcane Missiles casts early, unless you have the 4-piece set bonus active. The 4-piece bonus more than doubles our Arcane Missiles damage, so when you have the 4-piece buff, you want to let that Arcane Missiles cast fully channel. Follow this rotation until Touch of the Magi is about to wear off, and right before it does, you want to cast Presence of Mind to fit 1 extra Arcane Blast in. Once Touch of the Magi drops, Keep following this priority list until your Siphon Storm buff wears off, then cast Shifting Power, and that's the end of the Arcane Surge burn. After the Surge burn, we head into the Filler Rotation. The Filler Rotation consists of following a simple priority list. Cast Arcane Orb at less than 2 Arcane Charges, Arcane Blast with Nether Precision, Arcane Missiles with Clear Casting, and regular Arcane Blasts. In each 1 minute and 30 second cycle of Arcane's cooldowns, you'll be in the Filler Rotation twice, and you'll notice that in the second Filler Rotation, you might start running dry on mana. To counteract this, whenever you reach around 30% mana, you want to stop clipping your Arcane Missiles casts, and you want to incorporate casting Nether Tempest to keep the debuff up whenever you have 4 Arcane Charges. The reason we cast Nether Tempest only at 4 Arcane Charges is that the damage over time snapshots based on how many Arcane Charges we had when we applied it. So you only really want to apply and refresh it at 4 Arcane Charges. If you run out of mana, you can also Arcane Barrage. Once Radiant Spark and Touch of the Magi are back off cooldown, it's time to head into the mini burn rotation. Make sure you have 4 Arcane Charges, pop Radiant Spark, Nether Tempest, Arcane Barrage into Touch of the Magi while Barrage is traveling right before it lands, and then 4 Arcane Blasts to finish up our Radiant Spark ramp. After this, we follow a simple priority list of Nether Precision buffed Arcane Blasts, clear-casted Arcane Missiles, and regular Arcane Blasts. Once again, remember that you should be cutting your Arcane Missiles casts short in favor of casting more Arcane Blasts unless you have the 4-set bonus in which you want to fully channel that Arcane Missiles cast. You want to follow this priority list until Touch of the Magi drops, then enter back into the Filler Rotation until Evocation comes off cooldown, and the rotation effectively resets back to the Arcane Surge burn stage. Here's a quick 3-minute segment of me performing the single target rotation on a training dummy. I'll have text pop up showing what part of the rotation I'm in so you can follow along, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the comments. Now let's head into the AoE portion of the guide. We want to begin using the AoE rotation when we reach 3 targets. So here's what the Surge burn will look like when you're entering the rotation with 4 arcane charges. Cast Evocation, then Radiant Spark, another Tempest. Next, cast Arcane Surge and Arcane Barrage. You want to make sure you aren't spellqueuing this Arcane Barrage with Arcane Surge. Once again, if you're not sure what it means to spellqueue, I'll have an explanation of it down in the description, as well as the reason why you should avoid doing it in AoE. But you pretty much want to let the Arcane Surge cast go off, and then cast Arcane Barrage. Next, cast Touch of the Magi while Barrage is traveling, or right before it lands. Now, due to the Orb Barrage talent, every time you cast Arcane Barrage, you have a chance to shoot out a free Arcane Orb, so you need to react to the proc, and that will guide which spell you cast next. Basically, whenever you cast Barrage, you're checking to see if you got a free Arcane Orb, and if you did, Barrage again. If you didn't, use one of your own Arcane Orb charges. So let's go through the Surge burn as an example. We cast this first Arcane Barrage and use Touch of the Magi off GCD. Did you get a free Arcane Orb proc? If yes, cast another Arcane Barrage. Did that Barrage give a free Arcane Orb? If yes, great, Barrage again. If not, use your own Arcane Orb and enter the filler rotation. Now back to the first Arcane Barrage. If you didn't get a free Arcane Orb proc, you'd still Barrage a second time since Touch of the Magi itself puts us back at 4 Arcane charges. The only difference is you have one less stack of Radiant Spark. So continuing with the rotation, did your second Barrage proc a free orb? If yes, cast another Barrage and enter the filler. If you didn't get a free one, use your own Arcane Orb, cast Arcane Barrage, and enter the filler rotation. So in any of these scenarios, once your Radiant Spark ramp ends, you enter the filler rotation until your Siphon Storm buff expires, then cast Shifting Power, and that's the end of the Arcane Surge burn. Now if you enter the Arcane Surge burn with no arcane charges, this is how your rotation might look depending on RNG. The only real difference here is that you're going to want to cast Arcane Orb right after Radiant Spark. After that, it's pretty much the same rotation, but I'd recommend just try to enter your burns with 4 arcane charges. Now for the filler rotation. The filler rotation for AoE is a simple priority list. Cast Arcane Missiles with the clear casting proc and your Forset buff. Maintain another Tempest at more than 6 targets when you have 4 arcane charges. Arcane Barrage at 4 arcane charges. You can also Barrage at 3 arcane charges if you have Orb Barrage talented. Arcane Orb at less than 2 arcane charges. And Arcane Explosion. As for Arcane Orb usage, make sure you save at least 1 charge for your Surge and mini burns. Now let's talk about the mini burn. So this is what the mini burn will look like if you're entering the rotation with 4 arcane charges. I know it looks like there's a lot going on, but remember, it all just boils down to the same question. Did I get a free Arcane Orb proc? If I did, Barrage. If I didn't, then I'll have to cast my own Arcane Orb. Keep asking that question every time you Barrage until the Radiant Spark ramp is complete, and that's all you really need to worry about, but if you wanted to see all the possible paths that the RNG can lead you through, this flowchart details it. And this is what the mini burn would look like if you're entering the rotation with 0 arcane charges. Once again, you just fit an Arcane Orb after Radiant Spark, and the decision making later on is the same. Just like with the Surge burn, I recommend you try to enter your mini burns with 4 arcane charges. Here's a quick 2-minute segment of me performing the AoE rotation on a group of training dummies. Keep in mind that in this clip I'm getting multiple burns out, but in a Mythic Plus scenario you'll mostly be alternating between the Arcane Surge burn and mini burn between packs. Alright guys, that's the end of the video. I hope this saved you some time and brought you up to speed. If you have any questions at all, feel free to ask in the comments. I'm very active there. Please subscribe. I appreciate the support, and I wish you a very nice day. Take care.